Good morning, students. Today I am going to start a new chapter for you from the Snapshot, and the title of the chapter is the address from the second chapter. And the writer of this chapter is the address is the Marga Minko. Now let me tell you something about what is the outline of the story. The narrator, or you can say the protagonist of this story, is a woman, and she is the daughter of Mrs. S. Okay, there is no full form of this lady, the mother of the protagonist. So this is the story about the pre-World War effect and a post-World War effect. So after the World War over, she had gone to, means the narrator had gone to her hometown to meet the one another lady, and the name of that lady is Mrs. Darling. And now who is Mrs. Darling? Mrs. Darling is one woman and who has some good connection or intimacy with Mrs. S, who is the protagonist, who is the mother of the protagonist. Okay, so now this Miss Darling used to come to their house, that narrator's house, and the narrator had gone to meet Mrs. Darling to collect some belongings of her mother. So now, why she was going to her house to collect that belonging, I'm not going to tell you. Let's have a look at the line by line explanation so that you can understand it properly. Okay, so let's start. I told you about the title of the chapter is the address, and the writer is Marga Minko. This is the story of a vibrant account of a daughter. I told you that who is the daughter? That is the narrator, or you can say the protagonist, who goes in search of her mother's belonging. Okay, her mother's belonging को search करने के लिए वो जाती है belonging after the World War in Holland. Holland में जो World War हुआ था उसके बाद what are the belongings of her mother? She is going to search for that of her earlier life. However, she decided to leave all behind and resource to move on. But later on, at the end, when she met this Darling, she decided not to visit again and to move on. Right? So let's start. Do you still know me? I asked. Here, the uh, the that woman is asking the lady, that is the protagonist, and the protagonist, the narrator, went to the Mrs. Darling's house. Okay, so she is asking this. Do you still know me? The woman looked at me searchingly. Now, that woman, Mrs. Darling, was looking at the protagonist very searchingly, or finding out that, do you know me? She had opened the door chink. Chink means the narrow opening, right? There is a narrow opening in the entrance. So she opened that door a chink. I came closer and stood on the step. Okay, so the protagonist go closer and stood there on the step. No, I don't know you, right? And the woman is saying that, no, I am not knowing you. I am Mrs. X's daughter. Now she is giving the clarification or the idea so that you can know me, that I am the daughter of Mrs. X. She held her hand on the door as though she wanted to prevent it opening any further. Now, this Mrs. Darling, or Mrs. Darling is in the mind, or she has the thought that she is avoiding her and she is not letting her to inside the room. That's why she was holding a hand on the door so that she cannot, that the protagonist cannot enter inside, and you can say that she is preventing to in opening the door. Her face gave absolutely no sign of recognition. Okay, on the face sometimes this happen with us when you go somewhere whom you don't know, but daughter, where your your relatives, na? When you changed after so many years, and when you have they have seen you when you were very small, and when you meet after so many years, when you say that I am this daughter or son, you can see on the face that they are trying to searching out, or there is no sign of recognition on the face. So same happened with this protagonist also. Mrs. Darling is unable to recognize the face of this protagonist. She kept staring at me in silence. Now the protagonist is saying that she was staring at me in silence. He was not speaking anything. Perhaps I was mistaken. Now, when this happened, so we are thinking that it was my mistake. So same happened with protagonist, this narrator also. She was thinking that it was my mistake, that I came to someone else's house. Okay, I thought perhaps it isn't her. Okay, maybe it is not her house which I was looking for. I had seen her only once, fleetingly, once for a short time, because she was not knowing her personally, and that's why she had seen for first time, or very in a very short period of time, and that was years ago. Before so many years ago, I have seen her. So I am not sure that whether this is the same woman is or not. It was most probable that I had rung the wrong bell. Okay, now she was thinking that maybe I had rang the wrong doorbell or the wrong house. So it was his mistake, that it was her mistake that she came on another home. The woman let go of the door and stepped to the side. Okay, she was wearing my mother's green knitted cardigan. Now, when she opened little bit door, she that the narrator recognized her mother's green knitted cardigan. So उसका जो एक cloth था, that the woman Mrs. Darling was wearing. So she recognized that, and from that she was very clear that this is the same house which I was looking for. The wooden button was rather pale from washing, and she had seen the button on that green knitted cardigan, and it was pale, means the color is gone. So maybe it is because of washing if the color is gone. She saw that it was looking at the cardigan and half hid herself again behind the door. Now this woman comes to know that that the protagonist or the narrator was looking at her cardigan. So she is trying to hide herself behind the door, so that the narrator could not recognize that she is the same woman. But I knew now that I was right. But from this proof and evidence, the narrator is firm that this is the same house and which I was looking for. Well, you knew my mother? I asked. So she asked the woman that, do you know my mom? Have you come back? Said the woman. Again, the woman is saying that you came back. I thought that no one had come back. Okay, so मुझे लगा कि कोई वापस नहीं आएगा, but you came back. Only me. Okay, nobody is with me. Only me. Means only I came back. A door opened and closed in the passage behind her. Right. So she opened the little door, and it was closed in the passage behind her. There is the passage which is there, which is closed. A musty smell emerged. Now, what do you mean by musty? Stinking or stale smell emerged into the house. I regret. I cannot do anything for you. Now she is saying that sorry, I could not, cannot do anything for you. I have come here specially on the train. I wanted to talk to you for a moment. Now the protagonist is saying that I came from far away, and in a train, and I wanted to talk to you for a moment. It is not convenient for me now, said the woman. I can't see you another time. Okay. So she is saying that this is not a convenient time that I can talk to you. So see you in the next time. She nodded and cautiously closed the door as though no one inside the house should be disturbed. She nodded, means gives the gesture, and she closed the door so that nobody is inside. Those who are in the inside should not be disturbed. I stood where I was on the step. The curtain in front of the bay window moved. Okay. Suddenly, when she was standing on the step, she saw there was a movement in front of the curtain, in front of the window, and someone stared at me, and someone was gazing at me. Would then have asked what I wanted. Okay. Oh, nothing. The woman would have said, I was not. It was nothing. Okay. She was saying that, is there anyone who wants something? And the woman said that, oh, nothing, it was nothing. I looked at the nameplate again. I looked at the nameplate, whether she was on the right house or not. Darling, it said. Now there was written darling, so this is the proof, second proof that she was first proof that she was wearing her mother's uh, uh, knitted guardian, and the second proof is that is written darling on the nameplate in black letter on white and enamel. Enamel means one substance that is type of glass on the number on the nameplate. There are different types of semi-transparent glass is there. So it is written and in a black letter darling, and on the jam or bit higher the number 46. Jam in the side post of a window, fireplace or a doorway, वहां पे एक नंबर लिखा था, and that the number is number 46. Now, as I walked slowly back to the station, I thought about my mother who had given me the address years ago. Now, that lady could not give her a permission to enter the house. So the protagonist walked slowly back to the station. And she was thinking about that her mother, that who has given her the years ago, sorry, address years ago. It had been in the first half of the year. Now, here the protagonist is talking about that how did she get the address of that Mrs. Darling. Okay, so she got the this address at the first half of the war. I was home for a few days, and that time because of war there was holidays, and that's why he was at home. And it struck me immediately that something or more other about the rooms had changed. And then after I come to know that something is changed immediately at the house. I missed various things. Okay, I missed various things. There are some things are missing. My mother was surprised. I should have noticed so quickly. My mother was very surprised that the protagonist has noticed it very quickly. Then she told me about Mrs. Darling, and that time my mother, told me about Darling, Mrs. Darling. Who is Mrs. Darling? I had never heard of her, but apparently she was an old acquaintance of my mother. Okay, I means the protagonist is talking about that I don't know her apparently, means physically I don't know her, but I only come to know that she is an old friend and she has a friendship with my mother, some intimacy with my mother, whom she hadn't seen for years. And from many years we haven't seen her. She had suddenly turned up and renewed their contact. And after so many years, she suddenly came to our house and started renewing our contact. Now, this happened with us also. We have friends from many years, we don't have any contact, and suddenly, after many years, we come to know about our friends and we start renewing our contact. So, same happened with the protagonist's mother and Mrs. Dorley. Since then, she had come regularly, and then after she came regularly. Every time she leaves here, she takes something home with her, said my mother. Her mother is saying that why her home is looking empty, because whenever Mrs. Darling came to the protagonist's house, she takes something from her house at her home. She took all the silver in one go, right? So she took the table silver in one go, and then the antique plates that hung there, and some antique plates which were hanging in the room. She had double trouble lugging those large vases, and I am worried she got a creak in her bag from the crockery. Now here vases and crockery, and one day what happened, that the mother of protagonist was very much worried about the lugging. Lugging is carry a heavy object with great effort. That maybe she got a creak. Creak means cramp, right? This is the cramp. Sorry, creak is cramp on her back because of the heavy load on the back. My mother shook her head pityingly. Pityingly means feeling sorrow, that she is feeling very sorrow. I would never have dared ask her. I don't have any dare to ask her not to take anything. She suggested it to me herself, and this is her suggestion to take the things with her. Now, what is the suggestion? She even insisted, not only suggestion, she even insisted her mother. Now, what she has insisted? She wanted to save all my nice things. Now, she gave this idea or suggestion so that if I take one by one things from you, then I can save all your nice things. If we have to live here, we shall lose everything, she says, right? So, sometimes because it is the war place, and if we have to leave this place and something happened, then we will lose everything. So it is better to save the things, and I'll pick one things to our home so that your things will be saved. This is really rubbish thing. She says, have you agreed with her that she should keep everything I asked? Now the protagonist is asking that, have you agreed with her what that that woman said? As if that's necessary. My mother cried, and my mother said that it is necessary. That's why I agreed. Now this is really very ridiculous when someone is suggesting and insisting you this type of silly things. It would simply be an insult to talk like that. Our mother is saying that if I say no, then it will be a very insult to that friend, right? That because this she is very old friend. And think about the risk she is running each time she goes out of our door with a full suitcase bag. And you just imagine that whenever she came, she had a full suitcase or a bag with the things. Okay? Going further, my mother seemed to not notice that it was not entirely convinced. My mother was also noticing that it was not convincing. She looked at me reprovingly, and after that, we spoke no more about it. And that time, when I said with my mother that it is not convincing, and then after my mother didn't talk about that Mrs. Darling. Meanwhile, I have arrived now here. The story ends about Mrs. Darling, that what she knows, the protagonist knows from her mother. Now, because she was walking to the station, so during that period she was thinking about her conversation with her mother and what she has told about Mrs. Darling. Meanwhile, I had arrived at the station without having paid much attention to things on the way. Now she was thinking about the past. That's why she was unaware about what is going in the road. What is going around her. That she was not knowing, and her attention was not to the things on the way. I was walking in familiar places again for the first time since the war. After the war, she was walking for the first time, and it was a familiar place. But I did not want to go further than was necessary. Now I don't want to go further, and it is what if it is not necessary. I didn't want to upset myself with the sight of streets and houses full of memories from a precious time. And you understand that what is the situation of after war, and that's why she is saying that I don't want to upset myself by having the sights of streets and houses which have full of memories and from a precious time. Okay. In the train back, I saw Mrs. Darling in front of me again. Okay, and she was going back. I saw Mrs. Darling in front of me again as I had the first time I met her. Okay, so उसको first time उसको मिली थी. It was the morning after the day my mother had told me about her. So कब उसको मिली थी? That again she is talking about the past when she saw Mrs. Darling first time, and her mother told me about her. I had got up late. Now that night I got up late and coming downstairs. And I was coming downstairs. I saw my mother about to see someone out. Now she was bidding goodbye to someone, and a woman with a broad back. That woman that she was talking about is Mrs. Darling, whose back is very broad. So she saw her very little, for a short time. There is my daughter, said my mother, and she said that this is my daughter, that is the narrator. She beckon. Beckon means signal to me. Means she is not saying anything but only gives gesture, right? The woman nodded and picked up the suitcase under the coat rack. She was. Now that time she was also going back with her luggage full of suitcase items are there in the luggage in the suitcase. She wore a brown coat and a shapeless hat. Now she was wearing a brown coat and the hat was shapeless. Does she live far away? I asked. And that time I asked that, does she live far away? Seeing the difficulty she had going out of the house with a heavy case. Now you can see that this is the suitcase is full of luggage and it is very heavy. So by in walking also they can understand that she has a difficulty in walking. That's why she is asking that, does she live far away? That time her mother gave the address in Marconi Street, said my mother, number 46, remember that. And that time my mother gave the address, and this is the address of Mrs. Darling and Marconi Street, number 46. So that she was remembering, and after the World War, she is going to see that Mrs. Darling. But right now, Mrs. Darling is unable to recognize intentionally. She is recognizing her, but she is not would she was not like to uh, sure or would not like to enter that protagonist into the house. So let's stop here. We'll continue next.